The dismembered bodies of 9 missing students have been found on the side of a highway in southern Mexico, along with a bag filled with severed hands. Authorities made the gruesome discovery in San José Miahuatlán, near the border of Puebla and Oaxaca. 4 bodies were stuffed inside the trunk of an abandoned vehicle, while 5 others were found under a blood-soaked tarp nearby. Investigators recovered 8 pairs of severed hands in a bag, with 2 more left inside the car. The victims, 4 women and 5 men between 19 and 30 years old, all had bullet wounds and signs of torture. The students from Tlaxcala had traveled to Oaxaca for a beach vacation, but went missing on February 27th. Surveillance footage shows their vehicle on a highway near Atlaco 3 days earlier, about 90 miles from where their remains were found. The car, a dark grey Volkswagen, was discovered around 150 miles southeast of Mexico City. Authorities have not named any suspects, but say investigations are ongoing. Prosecutors from Puebla, Tlaxcala and Oaxaca are working together to track down those responsible. Mexico recorded 30,000 murders in 2023, making it one of the country's deadliest years on record. Many of the killings are linked to cartel violence. For now, the mystery remains. Who targeted these students, and why?
That's the first thing I thought when I heard the hands. The hands represent them being thieves. Maybe not all of them, but what happens when you hang out with but that's what happens when you hang out with the wrong crowd. And I'm saying, that's what I thought too. Like, yo, hands, right? They took their hands off. They must have done something. That's what you do to thieves, right? You knock their hands off. I thought, what are you softies trying to steal from somebody that can physically manipulate you and machetazo you until it's a wrap? You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? And then it made me think of, I don't remember if it was a group or a couple that went to Mexico and a couple of them got smoked. And then the cartel supposedly turned over the guys that did it. What was that all about? This is just too crazy. 9 bodies. What they say, 8 sets of hands. 19 to 30 years old. Everybody 19 to 30 years old. Like, that's fucking crazy. What did you guys do to get yourselves put in them back? And somebody's going to justify it? What did they steal? What could they have stole? A load? What gets you end up like that? What? You stole a bag of bud to go enjoy at the beach? I don't understand what happened here. But I don't know nothing about the story either. Let's get with our boy Jesse Weber.
9 bodies were found dismembered in a car on a remote Mexican highway, and authorities are desperately searching for answers. Among the victims was a young mother who vanished while on vacation, and authorities say it is possible someone actually survived this horrific situation. But answers, they remain elusive, and now there is reporting that the victims could have been involved in some sort of criminal activity in the wrong place, leading to their deaths. But
what the y'all doing on vacation, acting a fool, getting yourself involved in shit that don't concern you?
Is this all just misinformation? I'm going to be speaking with former FBI agent Bobby Chacon to break down everything we know so far about this disturbing story. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Jacqueline Ile Meza Cazares was reportedly supposed to be enjoying a relaxing vacation with friends on the sun-soaked beaches of Mexico's Oaxaca coast at the end of February. But instead, the 23-year-old mother of 2 vanished without a trace, leaving her family in panic, desperate for answers. But here's the thing, as frightening as that is, her disappearance was just the beginning of something much more horrifying, because the investigation into her death would culminate in the discovery of 9 dismembered bodies, 4 women, 5 men, abandoned in a car on a remote highway. And that gruesome find has sent shockwaves throughout Mexico, raising questions about possible cartel violence, government accountability, the safety of tourists in one of the country's most popular destinations. Now, according to reporting from El País, the nightmare began on February 27th when 29-year-old Angie Lizeth Perez Garcia and 19-year-old Brenda Mariel Salas Moya were last seen in Santa Maria Hualtuco, a city in Oaxaca. According to police,
my kids ain't going nowhere, right? You ain't going nowhere. Sit your ass at the house, man. You can't go nowhere.
The 2 women were traveling in a Ford Fiesta with Yucatan license plates when they disappeared. And we know this because police say they reviewed CCTV footage capturing the last known sighting of the friends on February 24th, driving along a highway approximately 90 miles west of where their remains were found. Then, according to El País, the next day, Raul Emmanuel Gonzalez Lozano and Noemi Yamileth Lopez Moratia, both 28, went missing after being seen at a local beach. 21-year-old Leslie Noya Trejo was also reported missing from that same area that day. This is along with two other people, Ruben Antonio Ramos and Rolando Armando Evaristo, both 22. The families of these missing people were left in the dark. They were frantically searching for answers. The search involved police and the prosecutor's offices from 3 different areas, possibly complicating the investigation. But Jacqueline's distraught mother took to Facebook to plead for help. According to the outlet El País, she wrote, "My daughter disappeared last night on a beach in Hualtuco called Cipolite. They took her, and until now, we know nothing about my daughter. She was taken from a food place near the same beach. 2 little ones, 5 and 3 years old, are waiting for her." The mother of 2 had a whole family to get back to, a life waiting for her. But that day would never come. A few days later, on March 2nd, the nightmare took a horrifying turn. Authorities in San José Miahuatlán, apologies if I mispronounced that, it's a municipality on the border of Puebla and Oaxaca, discovered an abandoned dark gray Volkswagen Vento on the side of the highway. Inside that car, they found a scene of just unimaginable brutality. And I want you to brace yourselves because this is horrifying. According to Central Puebla Irreverente, 4 bodies were stuffed into the trunk. And then there were 5 that were found under a blood-soaked tarp inside the vehicle. El País reports a bag containing 8 pairs of severed hands were also discovered, with 2 additional hands found in the trunk. The bodies reportedly showed signs of bullet wounds, torture. Removing them from the car took several hours. And that discovery, as I mentioned, it sent shockwaves throughout the region. And clearly this has now been broadcast around the world. But initial reports suggested that the victims were the missing people, but authorities were cautious. Unfortunately, though, we really don't know anything about who could have done this to these people or why, but rumors have circulated, they've swirled, that a local gang or cartel could be involved. We do know that when police made the initial discovery, the victims couldn't be immediately identified. In a press conference on March 3rd, the head of the State Attorney General's office in Puebla, Adamas Pastor Petencourt, said, "So far I can't offer information. All relevant investigations are being carried out. When we have a response and the investigation is complete, we will be in a position to provide more information." I want to bring back on friend of the show, former FBI agent Bobby Chacon, to talk about what is a very, very disturbing case. Thank you so much for jumping on this. Your thoughts on this, and also what are some of the steps you think law enforcement are going to be taking now to try to solve what is a gruesome, gruesome crime?
Yeah, Jesse, thanks. Good seeing you again. Look, the obviously in Mexico, when you get this level of violence, the assumption is cartel, because we've seen like a big level of violence in cartel, horrific violence by the cartels. But what makes this case different and why we're talking about it is the victims. Usually, if these were 6 or 8 rival cartel members, the case would be closed. We'd know what happened. But the fact that these people, and they all weren't taken in a group, the fact that they were 2 here and 2 there and 3 there.
Wait, so these people didn't know each other? If these people didn't know each other, that's crazy. Getting snatched up from basically the same area one at a time is crazy.
Makes it very unusual. These were basically tourists, Mexican tourists in their own country, but tourists, enjoying vacation away from their families. It's a very unusual case in that respect. The victims are what make this case unusual. The level of violence, sure, it's obviously horrific, but the cartels are known for that. But this is not what the cartels do. Cartels don't kidnap, Mexican tourists or even U.S. tourists. They don't. That's not their game. We see that cartel versus cartel violence, but we don't see that generally against, civilians and citizens of the country. When you do see an abduction or a disappearance of 2 people like that, normally you get a ransom demand and it's a kidnapping and things like that. But that didn't happen in this case. This was a real mystery on, who carried out. Now, as an investigator, one thing, when you have, 7 sets of hands or whatever, how many they were in a bag. When I used to work mob cases in New York City, they used to cut the hands off sometimes to delay identification. And so the fact that they were in a bag makes me think that, did they forget to take the bag? Were they rushed out of there and they dropped the bag or whatever? But the hands in the bag normally is a sign of a kind of a forensic countermeasure where you kind of take them away so they can't be fingerprinted and identified readily. They'll be eventually identified, but it delays that. So that's a real odd part to this, because it looks more like a professional hit, when hands are in a bag like that.
And I wanted you to keep that in mind in terms of the identification. Was it purposeful to leave it there? Were they rushed? They couldn't clean up as much as they wanted. And look, the thing that I thought about is to carry this out, you have to have the opportunity and the resources to do this, right? You have to have the ability to, again, if you take this reporting as true, to torture these people, to kill them, to mutilate their bodies. You can't just do that on the open road. This had to have been somewhere else, right? And it seems to me,
it had to be multiple people carrying it out. Sure, you have to have multiple people, and you have to bring the tools. So you have to have planning in advance. So whoever's doing this is actually thinking, I'm going to torture you. It didn't happen spur of the moment. This is a planned thing. They had to have, there's multiple people involved. There's, tools to you can't just dismember bodies. Very difficult. So one of the things you're going to look at is how the hands were severed. Is it a professional job? Is it a sloppy job? That kind of stuff will tell them who they're dealing with. But again, it goes back to motive. Like, why would these people taken? Why were these people targeted? By no accounts are they.
I'm the police. I'm putting a decoy on that beach for the next year. Oh, you don't got no camera footage? You didn't see nothing? Nobody said nothing? Cool. Put a decoy on that beach for a year till somebody come and snatch her. Then you got them. Then you send them to the raft and you do the same shit to them.
Wealthy people. There were no ransom demands. They weren't involved in gangs or gang violence. So it begs a question of, why this was done. And that's the real disturbing thing. Obviously, the level of violence is disturbing, but why these people were just killed in general is a real mystery here, because there doesn't seem to be any motive for this group of people to be taken, and have this done to them.
I thought it was a bunch of people that went on vacation together, went to hang out together, and they all ended up snatched and misplaced together. No, this is a group of people that probably don't even know each other.
Well, as the investigation unfolded, and we're talking about identities, some of the victims' identities were revealed. I mean, Central Puebla Irvente reported that Angie Perez Garcia and Leslie Trejo, they were confirmed through ID cards that were apparently found at the scene. And Oaxaca's Attorney General...
Listen, for some people that didn't want them to be identified, supposedly, they really did everything in their power to make sure that they get identified. I mean, you can't forget the bag of hands, and you can't forget the IDs. Like, not very incompetent.
Confirmed through ID cards that were apparently found at the scene. And Oaxaca's Attorney General reported that the other victims included Raul Gonzalez Lozano, Noemi Lopez Mortilla, Ruben Ramos, Rolando Evaristo, and at this time, the ninth victim remains unidentified. But Bobby, going back to your question that you made before, to leave the ID cards, to leave the hands, part of me was like, well, is it to send a message to know who these people are? Or was it somebody who was sloppy, or a group of people who were sloppy, or were they in a rush and couldn't get rid of all the evidence they needed to? I mean, I hate to be talking, I'm not trying to be callous, but we're trying to understand a little bit more about this investigation.
No, absolutely. And that, as an investigator, that's what you have to think. You have to kind of put yourself in the mindset of the criminal and see, like, what happened here. Like, in the mindset, I took them here and I'm taking their hands, I'm cutting their hands off. Cutting someone's hands off just for the sake of it doesn't make sense. Now, there have been serial killers who ritualistically dismember people, but that's not what we have here. And so, the only reason to take your time to dismember people's hands, I would think, is to delay identification. But why you would leave ID cards behind, again, it's another part of the mystery. I mean, as an investigator, I think what they're doing is you have to look in the backgrounds of each of these individuals and see if there's any connection. Obviously, the people that were traveling together are connected, they're friends or whatever. But see if those separate, disparate sets of people that were taken and this happened, is there any connection to them? Do they have any common denominators? Do they have any common people that they know in their lives? Do they do business with a common business? You have to kind of find a connection between the victims, and maybe that could lead you to a suspect.
And I will tell you, there's also a really bizarre twist to all this, is that one of the missing women, Brenda Salas Moya, who had been reported missing alongside Angie, She was found alive in Puebla. Now, authorities haven't provided details about her condition or how she ended up there. But Bobby, you know, is it connected? Is it not? How key is the fact that you have somebody here who was reported missing is now alive? I don't know what information.
Reported missing from the same place. What?
She may have, but I feel that that's a critical element.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge piece. I mean, to get a living victim to give you information on, like, where was your friend? Now, hopefully, you know, her friend didn't wander off and she was abducted when they were apart. But she could give vital information on, you know, if she
and what condition was she in when they found her?
Witnessed the abduction, or if they attempted to take her too. She would have vital information. She could even, like, say where her friend was taken, or even if the friend wandered off, give a general area where they were abducted from, and then, like you said earlier, they may capture them on video. You know, now we captured some of the victims moving around on video, but maybe they can. You know, if they can get video of one of these abductions happening, then you can maybe identify people or vehicle that the abductors were in. So having a live victim is a huge piece, and she can hopefully shed some light on how her friend disappeared, when, you know, where, and those kind of things. She might have some really vital information.
And not surprisingly for the families, this news devastating. So Jacqueline Meza's sister, Monica, confirmed her sister's death in a heartfelt Instagram post, writing, "Rest in peace, my little angels. It was no way to die, and even less for you. You deserved another farewell." Leslie Noya's sister, Carla, also shared her grief on Facebook, writing, "My beautiful girl, they have taken you from my life, and I could not protect you. I don't have the mind now to be able to accept what is happening. I wish that all this was a nightmare and that tomorrow everything would be fine. Your only mistake was trusting the wrong people, my girl." And authorities have been very tight-lipped about the case, leaving families, the public frustrated. The Oaxaca prosecutor's office has opened an investigation into the potential involvement of local police in the disappearance. No suspects have been named, but, you know, Bobby, let's just go back here for a second.
Shit is crazy. This story is crazy.
In your experience, if you know, what should we be thinking in terms of the Mexican authorities here? How confident are you in law enforcement and prosecutors to get to the bottom of all this? And you hear a little bit of a concern raised by the family.
Yeah, no, I think in a case like this, everything's going to have to be super quiet, and I wouldn't expect to hear from the prosecutors or the investigators until, like, there's a break in the case, because this type of case in this area, you know, there could be additional threats to additional victims if they talk. You know, depending on who did this and their motive. When I saw that, you know, local police may be involved, they have to have a reason to base that on, right? And so I wonder what that information is. And once you have local police involved, you know, whether it's corrupt U.S. cops or anywhere in the world, when you have corrupt police officers, you have that extra threat level. They could be trying to monitor the investigation. They could be seeing who the witnesses are in the investigation. You know, hopefully they have the one living witness secured at a safe house or somewhere where she's safe. Because once you have corrupt police involved, then that elevates all the threats to remaining victims out there and to the case itself. So everything has to be done really quietly, in almost secret. You would hope that they can somehow, you know, alert the family as to what's going on. And even if they can't tell them exact details, they meet with them. They tell them, we're working on this. We have everybody involved in it. So you can give that family some level of comfort. This is a horrific thing that has changed these families' lives forever. And they need some confidence that something's going to get done for their loved ones.
Well, here's the issue. So according to El País, the lack of transparency, that has fueled speculation and misinformation. And some media outlets allegedly falsely linked the victims to a criminal group called Los Zacapotlas. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that one too, but there are screenshots of a group chat purported to be between group members that have been spreading online. But El País reports that they've seen the messages and none of the victims' names are ever mentioned, and there's no evidence to connect them with criminal activity. But one of the reasons that there's this link to cartel crime, according to Newsweek, has to do with this odd coincidence that played out on the same day. So the outlet reported that on February 28th, Jose Alfredo Lavariega Canseco, who's allegedly the leader of this group, this cartel, was shot and killed. And NVI Noticias even reported that he was found with a message that read, "That's what you get for being a thief." But Angie Lizette's mother adamantly denied that her daughter's disappearance had anything to do with Canseco, telling El País, "My daughter had nothing to do with that group. If they really investigate, they will find out that there are many things there, and my daughter did not deserve that." Bobby, what do you make of all that?
What the fuck? No mama's way.
No mommy's
This
way.
shit takes another turn.
Well, look, the first thing is transparency. We all want transparency. We all think transparency is good, but sometimes transparency can't be practiced in an investigation, certainly at certain points in the investigation. This is kind of a new investigation. We're early on in this investigation. So I don't think anybody should attach the lack of transparency in either, corruption, or they're not doing their job, or they're not sympathetic enough towards the victims. I think sometimes investigations can be sensitive enough that the lack of transparency is really due to protecting potential witnesses out there and protecting future victims. So I would say at this point in the investigation, I think the lack of transparency is probably necessary because of the situation you have, because we don't really know what happened. I have to have confidence that the investigators have kind of an idea, and so that's why they're practicing, this lack of transparency. However, even here, we've learned that you can meet with the families and you can kind of give them that confidence that something's being done for their loved ones without having to reveal too much about your investigation. Sometimes families really get hurt by not being involved too much in the investigation, but sometimes that's for their own good. And sometimes it's for the betterment of the investigation. So you really have to kind of keep that in mind, when you see family members come out and kind of criticize the police for not keeping them as updated as possible, that sometimes the investigation just doesn't allow that. However, there's no excuse for any police department not having someone outreach to victims' families and that such, and just let them know what's going on.
What are the challenges, though, that law enforcement may face if this is a criminal organization or cartel-related crimes in Mexico?
The challenges are twofold, in my opinion, in this particular case. The challenges are typically just fear of the cartels, and nobody wanted to say anything because, obviously whoever carried this out is capable of horrific violence, of unbelievable violence, right? And so if that type of person instills fear in everyone, and so if someone out there knows a little bit about maybe what happened, they don't want to talk because they don't want the same thing happening to them, because these are clearly people that don't care about you in life. And it's people that can just take someone off the street and murder them in horrific ways. So it instills fear. That's the first thing. The first element is a challenge to investigators is the fear of witnesses, potential witnesses coming forward, or you go knock on someone's door and they don't tell you anything, even though they might know something. The second one is, as we said earlier, potential police corruption in this case. And so that's a second layer. That can also instill fear in the local population to come forward, but it also could, if they're trying to monitor the investigation, it could also give the bad guys some inside track on how to avoid, any further evidence developing against them. So I think the potential of police corruption and just a fear that this kind of crime instills in people, those are the two challenges, I think, going forward.
And look, we don't know the definitive answers behind this, but to provide a little bit more context, this gruesome discovery, this is not an isolated incident. So Mexico, just talking about cartels for a second, it has been plagued by cartel violence, with more than 30,000 murders reported in 2023 alone. This is according to the Secretariat of Security and Civil Protection. That is a staggering number. But that was actually about a 6.7% decline from 2022, which recorded more than 33,000 homicides. So to put that kind of in perspective, the total population of Mexico is about 129 million people, according to data from 2023. So that means around, 0.02% of people die there every year from homicides? And cartel violence on its own, it's a different breed of crime. Groups often use...
I want to see America's numbers on a whole lot of shit.
Extreme brutality to intimidate rivals and assert dominance. The tactics such as dismemberment, decapitation, public displays of mutilated bodies, they are designed to instill fear, send a message. And in recent years, cartels have reportedly even turned to cannibalism as part of initiation rituals for new recruits. A man using a fake name to try to protect him told Telemundo that he spent 3 months in a new generation training camp where recruits were allegedly forced to eat human flesh. Jalisco New Generation allegedly even posted videos of trainees eating the hearts of rivals. The discovery of the 9 bodies in Pueblo, along with the apparent torture and severing of hands, we don't know for sure, but you could make the argument, as we've been talking about.
Of course, we're going to connect everything. Everything's connected, right? Don't we say that all the time, don't we? It's all the same shit. Everything is cartel influenced, this or that. Quite possible, yes. But what the fuck happened? Could be anything. Could be human trafficking. Could be all kind of shit. A lot of twists and turns in this story. The girl that's alive, that's where we're going to get the most information or some kind of clarity, because this shit sounds crazy.
Fits the cartel's pattern of violence. These families of these victims, they are left to mourn their loved ones. They are demanding answers. The case has highlighted the pervasive issue of disappearances in Mexico, where more than 110,000 people are currently missing. This is according to the United Nations. And the UN also reports that the impunity rates hover around 95% impunity rates, being the percentage of illegal activities that end up going unpunished. Bobby, as I've read those stats, and we're talking about the high levels of cartel violence in Mexico, why has it persisted for so long, and why that degree of violence?
Well, that's, 2 questions. So the degree of violence is because there's so much money to be made in these cartels, and obviously they're all warring over, that piece of the pie, right? And so they're just, the brutal violence that comes along with that. And the second is, corruption at every level of government, and that kind of money, drives corruption. And so when you have people not making a lot of money who get offered bribes that are 1, 2, 3 times their annual salary for doing something, think about it. People got to feed their kids. I'm not justifying corruption. I'm just saying that's how it happens. And so those 2 things alone.
Listen, I've been saying it over and over, man. Poverty puts people in a position that they just shouldn't be in.
And look, we say cartel war, right? We say the cartel wars. Well, look how many, if the U.S. had a presence in another country and we were losing 30,000 soldiers a year, that's a war. And that would be a war we would want to end very quickly, because we don't want 30,000 U.S. Soldiers getting killed. That's a war. So what Mexico has is a war going on. I mean, the number of bodies that you just cited, that's a war. Countries lose that much in a war and quickly try to end the war if they're losing that many citizens to whatever it is. This is a plague. It's a war, and the Mexican government has allowed it to go on for far too long, and that's part of the corruption of it. So I think that that's what you have to look at. The United Nations needs to look at that, and Mexico itself has to kind of take a good look at those issues, because that's what's happening.
Does the FBI, the DEA, do they play any role in this at all, in combating cartel activity in Mexico?
Absolutely. I mean, both the FBI and DEA have offices all over Mexico. We have a huge FBI office in Mexico City. We have a small one in Guadalajara. We have, the DEA has offices there as well. So we're constantly working together with DEA, with the Mexican authorities to combat the cartels. And I think that, sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But what the biggest impediment of that effort is corruption at different levels of the Mexican government.
When do you think we'll get answers as to what's going on here? Or when do you think the family will get
I'm going to be looking for some answers. This story's crazy.
Answers as to what's going on here?
In this kind of case, it's tough because, like you said, Mexico is not immune to this level of violence. We've seen it before. However, the thing that makes this case unique and different is the victims. These are not typical cartel victims. I don't think they're cartel victims at all. I don't think any of them had anything to do with the cartel. So it's really difficult to say because of that. I mean, look, if it was cartel violence, if these 9 victims were identified as cartel members, we wouldn't even be talking about this. It would be case closed. We know what happened. We just got to find who did it. First of all, we have to know why this happened to these people. Why these people? And so once you have that, you know probably who did it. If you know the why, you know who, and then you get your evidence and go after them. But in this case, it could happen in a day. It could happen in 6 months. It depends on, what kind of break they get, because it's not, it's a mystery because of the victims, who the victim. These were innocent civilian victims, and that's what makes this case horrific.
And the families are demanding justice. They're demanding answers. And just to be clear, we don't know there's what's going on. We don't have any the Mexican authorities haven't indicated any possible suspects or motives at this time. So a lot of this is a little speculative, but it is important to address the current climate and situation and the aspects and circumstances surrounding what happened to these people. Really disturbing case. We'll keep a careful eye on it. Bobby Chacon, thanks so much for taking the time.
Shout out Jesse Weber. Shout out Law and Crime. I hope she's very well protected. I agree. She is a linchpin. She needs to be protected.
The 9 students who went missing while vacationing at Oaxaca Beach on February 27th were found dead on the side of the Puebla highway in Mexico on March 2nd. Even more horrifying, a bag containing 8 pairs of hands was found at the scene, along with 2 other hands discovered in the car trunk. A young woman who narrowly escaped made a shocking statement, claiming that the police were behind the incident. Meanwhile, Mexican statement
What is going on here? It has to be some AI shit. Or the way the picture's taking something. Why does this look like an eye on her chest?
A young woman who narrowly escaped made a shocking statement, claiming that the police were behind the incident.
What statement? We ain't hear no statement. Where's that statement at? Where's it coming from? You know what I'm saying? I want to hear that statement. What she say? She said the police had something to do with it? Okay.
Meanwhile, discovered in the car trunk. A young woman who narrowly escaped made a shocking statement, claiming that the police were behind the incident. Meanwhile, Mexican officials put forward new, equally shocking theories, leaving the public unsure of whom to believe.
I didn't think Oaxaca was occupied by any cartels. I don't know that there's any place that ain't connected somehow, reachable by the cartels.
On March 2nd, 2025, police found the bodies of 9 students, 4 women, and 5 men inside a dark gray Volkswagen Vento abandoned in San José Miahuatlán. San José Miahuatlán is located on the border between the Mexican states of Puebla and Oaxaca, about 175 miles from Mexico City. The victims were found in a dismembered state with a bag of severed hands beside them. 4 of them were in the car trunk, while the other 5 were found under a blood-stained tarp. The crime scene suggested a brutal murder, likely carried out by a gang. The victims, aged between 19 and 30, died from gunshot wounds and had multiple injuries on their bodies. Authorities took a long time to clear the crime scene and conduct forensic examinations. The initial report indicated that the victims might be the group of students previously reported missing by their families. The students from Tlaxcala had informed their families that they were heading to Oaxaca Beach to celebrate
Fucking paradise, and you can't just sit there with your ass out and enjoy the rays of the sun, because a motherfucker might snatch you. Next thing you know, your hands end up your ass and you're in a fucking trunk somewhere. Like, come on, man. What's wrong with humanity? Humanity, ya lo cagaron. Humanity lo cagó.
Yo vivo tranquila con la penetration.
La cagó. Beautiful beach. There's a chance you won't make it back from that moment.
heading to Oaxaca Beach to celebrate their graduation on February 14th. However, by February 27th, their families were unable
Here's
to
the
contact
thing. This
them
guy's
and
making it
reported the
seem
disappearance.
whoever this is, this AI voice is making it seem like they were all together. I want to know that. Were they all together or were they split apart? Were they just separate people, didn't even know each other?
To celebrate their graduation on February 14th. However, by February 27th, their families were unable to contact them and reported the disappearance to the authorities. Despite a large-scale search operation by the police,
Yeah, but here's the thing. Was it the 27th that you couldn't get a hold of them anymore? Or was it the 15th? Was it the 19th? Was it the 20th? I need these details. They
by
matter
the
to me.
police, no trace of the 9 students was found until the discovery of the crime scene. The other victims were identified as Ruben Ramos, Rolando Evaristo, and Uriel Calva, all 22 years old, Raul Gonzalez and Noemi Lopez, both 28, Leslie Noya, 21, Angie Lizeth Perez Garcia, 29, and Jacqueline Aylett, 23.
If they're all in the immediate vicinity of each other, you know, nobody saw nothing, like, I don't understand. And the last story that we paid attention to yesterday, which I believe might have been a law and crime story, I don't recall. Yeah, it was. It was Jesse Weber. Jesse Weber was talking to the detective. They said these people weren't together, all there separately, didn't know each other, ended up all together somehow. I didn't hear nothing in their story about the survivor making a statement about the police. I don't recall that. I heard them say that the internet was spreading rumors and shit like that and bringing up the mayor, who was an old man, right, that became the leader of the gang there. So he was the leader of the gang there. The old man, he was the mayor. And he did some foul shit. And what, is this his penance, that they just make his town look like shit and take out the lives of these young people? Is that it? That was it? Send a message? These young people were envelopes to send a message? What are we talking about here? Totally different stories. Now in this video, he's telling us, it sounds like he's telling us they were together, all together, celebrating their graduation, but I don't know.
The identity of the 9th victim has not yet been confirmed. Surveillance footage from February 24th showed the Volkswagen Vento driving along the Atlixcoyotl Highway near the town of Atlixco. This location is about 90 miles west of where the 9 victims were found. Authorities remain unclear about the group's whereabouts between February 24th and 27th. The mother of victim, Jacqueline Ailet Meza, said her daughter went on vacation with friends to the Mexican coast in late February before disappearing. She later called for help on Facebook and provided authorities with several details. My daughter went missing last night on a beach in Huatulco. Someone took her, and we have no news, Jacqueline's mother wrote. She also revealed that Jacqueline had 2 young...
Who was she with? The mother is saying, my daughter went missing last night. Where was the mother? How do you know? How are you able to say last night? Like, I don't know if I'm not putting these things together. I'm just not getting the information. And again, it's fractured information coming from who knows how many different places. And what dates? Because they say late February for her. But some people say that those kids went on vacation on the 14th. And on the 27th, they decided to call law enforcement because they couldn't find them. So I need a timeline.
Young children waiting for her at home, and that she was abducted from a restaurant near the beach. Many of the victims' families seem several details. She later called for help on Facebook and provided authority before disappearing. Went on vacation with friends to the Mexican coast in late February before disappearing. She later called for help on Facebook and provided authorities with several details. My daughter went missing last night on a beach in Huatulco. Someone took her, and we have no news, Jacqueline's mother wrote. She also revealed that Jacqueline had 2 young children waiting for her at home, and that she was abducted from a restaurant near the beach. Many of the victims' families seemed unable to accept the horrifying truth. Speaking to Mexican media, Leslie Noya's mother admitted that she was no longer lucid enough to comprehend what was happening. The woman wished that everything was just a nightmare and that things would be okay, but the reality was too cruel. She later made a statement suggesting that her daughter had trusted the wrong person. This cryptic remark has only deepened public suspicion surrounding the shocking case. What happened to...
Let me tell you something. Sometimes you go out there and you say shit like that. What if that cousin or the sister, whatever, didn't know nothing about her trusting the wrong people? Maybe that's just something she said out of her fucking head, and she creates this whole different line of thinking that doesn't exist because you're just making up shit now on the internet.
Happened to these people during their vacation
is
the question that concerns many the most. The details surrounding the case remain a mystery, as Mexican authorities have released very little information. While many suspect that a Mexican gang may have been behind the incident, a new detail has emerged that turns everything upside down. A young woman who narrowly escaped has revealed a horrifying story.
Answer me the question, where did the sole survivor say it? So we could read her statements for ourselves and get a source for it.
The lucky survivor is Brenda Salas, 19-year-old, a close friend of victim Angie Perez, 29-year-old. Speaking to the Tlaxcala State Attorney General's office, Brenda stated that she and Angie were standing outside the Hospedaje Jaca Hotel in Huatulco, Oaxaca, on February 26th. At that moment, a few city police agents suddenly forced them into a patrol car and kidnapped them. She believes that the police were behind the incident that led to her friend's death. However, Brenda did not disclose what happened next after they were abducted, raising even more curiosity as to why she survived while Angie did not.
How? What'd she say? She said the police got them. Somebody not telling us something. And it makes sense that nobody's reporting snatchings if the police is picking people up. They make it sound like they were all traveling separately. Who does? Everybody else, right? Because Law and Order made it sound like they were moving separately. This, which, you know, we'll take this with a big old grain of salt. It's saying that these two were together. That we knew. That the survivor and Angie were together. But I don't believe the whole group was together.
Meanwhile, the prosecutor's office has not provided any details on how Brenda Salas was rescued. They also have not confirmed whether Brenda's testimony is truthful, but the governor of Oaxaca stated that the case is still under investigation. Speaking to the
and maybe they ain't trying to tip off the people that are inside that are involved in all of this shit, so they're keeping this information quiet right now. Hit the like button if you have yet to do so, y'all.
Daily Mail, the prosecutor's office only revealed that authorities rescued Brenda on March 3rd, one day after the 9 students were found murdered. They refused to disclose any details regarding the rescue or the investigation into the
rescued or turned over. That sounds strange. So she was rescued the next day.
They refused to disclose any details regarding the rescue or the investigation into the shocking case. The testimony of the sole survivor has led many to suspect the Mexican police. Some speculate that the police may have collaborated with criminal gangs to eliminate the 9 students. However, others believe that the police may have kidnapped the 2 girls for some other reason. Under public pressure, Oaxaca Governor Solomon Jara questioned about the allegations that police were behind the abduction and murder of the 9 students. However, the content of the interrogation was not shared with the media, making the case even more mysterious. Jara only stated that the officers accused by Brenda remain unidentified, but the authorities will investigate. If Brenda's accusations are proven true, those officers will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Meanwhile, based on the survivor's testimony, an observant individual discovered that the hotel where Brenda and Angie stayed when they were abducted was owned by Che Lavariega. Strangely, Jose was shot dead while driving in San Miguel del Puerto, Oaxaca. Also on March 2nd, the same day the 9 victims were found.
What?
Upon looking into Jose, many were shocked to learn that he was a well-known figure in the area. Jose had previously run for mayor of Santa Cruz Huatulco in Oaxaca, but was accused of running his own criminal organization. He frequently recruited new members into his organization. From there, the media began investigating.
So this guy owned a hotel, ran for mayor, ran a gang, got smoked the same day,
and uncovered a special connection between Jose and the 9 victims. According to NVI Noticias, the 9 students did not actually travel to Oaxaca Beach for a vacation as they had told their families. Instead, they were members of a criminal organization called Los Zacapoaxtlas, which was led by Jose Lavariega. Both Jose and the murdered victims had crossed the wrong gang, which led to their gruesome fate. A police source told Mexican media that the group had arrived in Oaxaca in mid-February and engaged in criminal activities such as robbery and theft. NVI Noticias reported that the 9 students had stolen $19,000 from a man.
That is a hell of a motive for, what do we say, the moment that we heard about the hands in the bag. That the hands in the bag usually signifies, or the hands being severed usually signifies, a thief.
Noticias reported that the 9 students had stolen $19,000 from a man at a Santander bank in Santa Cruz, Huatulco on February 14th. The victims were also accused of attempting to rob an ATM on February 17th in downtown Huatulco. The group had also planned to rob a business at a commercial shopping center, but the attempt failed. While they were at the hotel, a group of people claiming to be police officers kidnapped them and took them away. This is why Brenda believes that the police were behind the incident. However, authorities have not yet confirmed whether the officers who arrested these students were real or imposters. They suspect that the Los Zacapoaxtlas crime organization clashed with a more powerful gang, leading to both its leader and members being eliminated. At the scene where Jose was found, Mexican authorities discovered a note left in his car that read, "This is the price thieves must pay." Mexican gangs have long been notorious for punishing thieves by cutting off their hands. This suggests that the killing of the 9 students was likely carried out by the same group and for the same reason. After NVI Noticias reported the victim's connection to crime boss Jose, the state offices of Tlaxcala.
You're just saying there's a connection to dude. What's the connection to dude? He recruited all of them. They all came separately to go on a spree. Now, I did question why this vacation for these young kids starts. I get it. People take 2-week vacations. No big deal, right? But these kids, he must have been out there spending bread. But what's the connection to him? You can't just say all these kids had a connection to him. Trust me, this shit sounds plausible as hell. It sounds plausible as hey, they came out there for a couple of weeks of getting money, and they were going to go back to where they was at. They was plugged with dude. Old girl staying at the hotel with the other shorty. It's his hotel. They pull off some shit for 2 weeks. The victims and the police do a little recognizance and figure out, hey, it's these kids. Boom, they go snatch them up from where they're at. Put their hands in bags, get rid of him. All of those things make sense. Reason it didn't raise any red flags. Anybody getting snatched up, I'm thinking they are at a resort or some shit, hanging out, and boom, they get snatched up in front of everybody. Nah, of course not.
Jose, the state offices of Tlaxcala, Puebla.
But tell me what the connection is between them and him. How did you connect that?
Connection to crime boss Jose, the state offices of Tlaxcala, Puebla, and Oaxaca all refused to provide further investigation details. The sole survivor, Brenda, also remained silent about the accusation.
That ain't fucking Brenda. These AI videos just throw whatever, boy. YouTube don't give a shit no more. People just not even trying. Just throw a picture of whoever right there.
And why they were staying at a hotel owned by Jose. Meanwhile, the mother of victim, Angie Lizeth Perez Garcia, told El País that her daughter had no connection to Jose's criminal group. My daughter had nothing to do with that group. If there were a real and serious investigation, I'm sure many things would be uncovered. My daughter didn't deserve this, she said. While Angie's mother denied her daughter's involvement with the gang, Mexican officials presented a new, supposedly credible theory. An official from the prosecutor's office, who was familiar with the investigation, shared details with the Daily Mail. This person claimed that Jose Lavariega, also known as El Josha, had invited the 9 victims members of Los Zacapaxlas to vacation in Oaxaca. Following his invitation, the victims reportedly asked him if they could steal and engage in other criminal activities while in Oaxaca. Jose's approval ultimately pushed these young people into the most terrifying nightmare.
Well, now that sounds ridiculous. He invited them to hang out, and then they asked him if they can be gangsters. And blah, blah, blah. No, if there was a deal for them to come out there and do work, then they was going to come out there and do work. Not some day he just invited them out, they came out and ended up doing work. Fuck out of here. Hey, bro, thanks for inviting us out here, bro. You think we could hit some ATMs and get some dudes in a car park and take 19 stacks from them, put some heat on our names and party all over and be all over this town for 2-3 weeks before we get snatched up? Nah, that don't sound right. It sounds like an exaggerated version of what they already speculated.
Also known as El Josha, had invited the 9 victims members of Los Zacapaxlas to vacation in Oaxaca. Following his invitation, the victims reportedly asked him if they could steal and engage in other criminal activities while in Oaxaca. Jose's approval ultimately pushed these young people into the most terrifying nightmare. According to an insider source,
unless all of these kids were part of that gang, living wherever they was at, and still part of this gang. But I don't know, though. That shit sounds a little far-fetched. Connection, yeah. Part of the gang, I don't know. Show up there and be like, hey, can I steal? If they went there to steal, it's because they were convinced from wherever they were at to come there to steal.
When the students asked if they could loot stores in Oaxaca, Jose replied, "No problem at all." With their leader's permission, the 9 students from Tlaxcala, 5 men and 4 women, began carrying out a series of thefts and robberies.
You got to show me proof of at least one of those. At least one. Because this whole part is sounding far-fetched. If they have any criminal intent whatsoever, they came there with it. You got to prove something out of all of this, something.
However, their actions angered another criminal group involved in drug trafficking in Oaxaca. The problem was that Los Zacapoaxtlas had crossed the line by operating in a rival gang's territory. There is another local criminal gang that controls the area near Oaxaca's coast. And then, what had to happen happened, the official told Daily Mail. Mexican authorities also revealed that the criminal networks in this area follow an unspoken rule: avoid committing crimes that directly impact local residents. However, when the 9 students violated this rule, chaos ensued. The official further explained that the most powerful crime syndicate in the region operates by selling drugs to tourists. Therefore, they have an agreement not to engage in robberies, considering looting a crime that directly affects ordinary civilians.
Yeah, don't mess with the market. Leave the market alone.
The official also confirmed that the daring robberies committed by the 9 students, as reported by NVI Noticias, were true. The latest statements from Mexican officials have stirred public debate, as this information has not yet been officially confirmed by the government. Meanwhile, some of the victims' families have not yet spoken out about the case. However, many believe that the information revealed by this official to the media is likely true. Oaxaca is widely known as a popular tourist destination, famous for its world-renowned cuisine and stunning beaches. Therefore, the murder of 9 students in this coastal city has shocked the public. The Attorney General's office in Puebla is still working with other law enforcement agencies in Tlaxcala and Oaxaca in an effort to arrest the perpetrators. At this time, I cannot provide any information. There are multiple lines of investigation, but I cannot disclose them for security reasons, said the head of the Puebla Attorney General's office. Most people know that Mexico has been ravaged by gang violence for decades. According to the latest data, more than 30,000 homicides occurred in Mexico in 2023, most of which were linked to gangs and carried out in gruesome ways. In 2018, 3 Mexican film students traveled to Guadalajara to shoot a project for their university. There, they met a 24-year-old rapper and YouTube sensation named Christian Omar Palma Gutierrez. Gutierrez was working for the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Like many others, Christian Omar Palma Gutierrez was drawn into the cartel, where he was paid 3,000 pesos per week to work as a cook. Cook was a euphemism for the gruesome task of disposing of victims. The 3 students, aged between 20 and 25, met Gutierrez in Guadalajara. They had no connections to the cartel, but accidentally filmed a house belonging to a rival gang. The house had been a target under surveillance by the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Shortly after, they were kidnapped, detained, and later murdered to cover up the incident.
Wait, what happened?
Gutierrez in Guadalajara. They had no connections to the cartel, but accidentally filmed a house belonging to a rival gang.
They accidentally filmed the house. So you got 3 film students go to make a movie in Mexico, meet a 24-year-old rapper, film the wrong house, ended up bound, gagged, and terminated. I'm telling you, boy, shit is outrageous.
The house had been a target under surveillance by the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Shortly after, they were kidnapped, detained, and later murdered to cover up the incident, while Gutierrez was arrested as a scapegoat for the cartel. In September 2011, Mexican police discovered multiple victims stuffed into a sack outside an elementary school in Acapulco. This event led to dozens of schools going on strike due to security concerns. That same day, in another part of the city, police found more victims in a horrifying state. Officials believed this was a tactic used by criminal gangs to instill fear in the public. Gangs often sign their crimes using distinctive markings. In 2022, the discovery of multiple dismembered body parts caused even greater panic among the public. Along with the remains was a note sent to the Mexican Department of Defense, in which the gang demanded permission to deal with those fools from the Cartel del Noreste on their own. This issue has nothing to do with any of you, the note read. Please allow us to work at night to eliminate these filthy scum. Gangs often settle their disputes in the most horrifying ways. Share your thoughts, feelings, and opinions about this story in the comments section below.
Yeah, it sounds like a cockamamie story. Okay, let me break it down like this. The whole police connection, the whole hands in the bag, the whole 9 separate kids from separate places that maybe kind of know each other. All of that shit makes perfect sense for that, right? But then there's other things that don't make sense. Are they part of this gang? Are they traveling to do this crime and this, that, and the other? That just sounds ridiculous. But it does make sense when it comes to you find out that the dude got smoked the same day they were found. It does make sense when it comes to when you find out that there was 8 pairs of hands in a bag. Why is there 8 pairs of hands in a bag? Por pillo, stealing. The police, there not being any reports of people seeing them being snatched. Why? Because it don't look like somebody getting snatched when the police is taking them. Whether they're kicking and screaming or not. But again, I don't know that all of these kids were criminals. But that stuff makes sense. Survivor of attack on group whose bodies were dismembered in Mexico details how they were intercepted. Brenda Mariel N. said the group was approached by a car that seemed to belong to municipal police. A survivor of an attack where a group of beachgoers were intercepted and unalived in the Mexican state of Puebla provided details of how the incident began. Local press reported that Brenda, so that's the source. The source is the local press. Local press reported that Brenda Mariel N. of 2 survivors of the attack in which 9, one of 2 survivors. So wait a minute, so now it's 2 survivors? Come on, man. This is why I can't with this internet, man. They're telling too many stories over here, man. They supposed to be federales, man. They're not federales.
Tango el gato, los pantalones.
Local press reported that Brenda, one of 2 survivors of the attack, in which 9 people were unalived and several of them dismembered, said she and another victim had left a hostel where they were intercepted by what seemed to be a local police car. Both Brenda and Jacqueline Ailette, who was unalived, were beat and a hood placed on their head before separating them. Brenda was abandoned on a road from where she managed to reach a city and report the crime. Jacqueline and 8 other people were unalived. Well, this story's fucking wrong in the LA Times because everybody else is telling us she was with Angie, not Jacqueline. That Brenda was with Angie at the hotel. Everywhere we're going, we're getting a different story about this. Am I wrong? They say the girl on the left is the girl that was with Brenda, right? Okay. If we go back to this video here that we just watched, that girl's name is Angie. Angie,
close friend of
Lisbeth
victim
Perez Garcia. There it is. This is supposedly the girl that Brenda was with. So the LA Times is reporting she was with Jacqueline Ailette. This is my problem with this. And it's also my problem with people coming in the comments in the chat and speaking matter-of-factly like they know this and know that and know this. Fucking media don't even know, man. And they be saying the wrong shit. This is the girl that they said was with the survivor, Brenda, in that hotel.
Brenda stated that she and Angie were standing outside.
She and Angie. This the LA Times right here, saying both Brenda and Jacqueline Ailette, who was unalived, wrong. This is supposed to be Angie Lizeth, were beat with a hood placed on their heads before separating them. Brenda was abandoned on the road from where she managed to reach. I'm supposed to believe that if the names ain't even right, and every time I hear this story is different. Jacqueline and 8 others were unalived. The 9 bodies show signs of physical manipulation and were found dismembered in the municipality of San José Miahuatlán in Puebla. The bodies were found in an abandoned vehicle along with a tarp full of stains. 4 of the bodies were reportedly found in the vehicle's trunk, and the bloody tarp was discovered inside the Volkswagen Vento along with 5 more corpses. Officials also reportedly recovered a bag with 8 pairs of hands, per Central Puebla Irreverente. The 9 people who were seemingly not part of a same group, all right, so now this story is telling us they are not part of each other, they did not show up there together, had been reported missing since February 27th. So you telling me all 9 were reported missing on the 27th? See, it's very loose. Everybody is very loose with how they're talking about this story. And to me, there's no room for loose. If you don't know, shut the fuck up. Don't say nothing. And if you do know, give us the right information so the shit can make sense to us. Nobody wants us to look at them like they're fucking dirtbags and criminals, but everybody want to get the story all fucked up. The 9 people who were seemingly not part of the same group had been reported missing since February 27th. Okay, all of them. On March 3rd, Idamis Pastor Betancourt, head of the state's attorney's office, said at a press conference that there was no information yet regarding how events unfolded. There are lines of investigation, but I cannot reveal them due to confidentiality, he said. All relevant investigations are being carried out. When we have a response and the investigation is complete, we will be in a position to provide more information, Betancourt added as a report by People. The investigation remains going. So this is them, the LA Times, supposedly confirming what the girl had to say. But it left me more confused than before I got to the motherfucker because everybody's telling a different story about this situation. Strange case, man. If y'all see any more information, just make sure y'all drop it in the Discord. Keep pushing the content forward. We'll keep checking up on this story because, coño, man. Listen, the Daily Mail is telling the same story that AI told. We're about to read that right now. Mexican officials share shocking new theory on unaliving of 9 students found with their hands separated. An aspiring mayor turned gang leader committed a cardinal sin in the Mexican criminal world that led to the unaliving of 9 students. They're very matter of fact about this and how they're saying it. Whose bodies was found mutilated in the same day whose bodies were found mutilated on the same day he was terminated. An official at the prosecutor's office with knowledge of the investigation told DailyMail.com that Jose El Rocha, not to be mistaken with...
Oye, ¿y el Rocha? ¿Y el Rocha? Bueno, ¿y el Rocha?
Shout out Velez. Sad how a lot of these kids were just looking for jobs and get smoked. And maybe not looking for jobs. Maybe get snatched up and pushed onto the job. Right? And then when they realize he can't do the job, they smoke him and throw him. You should have left him in the bread line, bro. Should have left him over there. He was minding his business. But yeah, they could have left them kids where they was at. An official at the prosecutor's office with knowledge of the investigation told us that Jose El Rocha Lavariega invited the victims, members of Los Brujos, to spend time in Oaxaca. Right? So he invited these people. How far did they travel to get there? How far did they have to travel to get to this vacation or whatever? I had heard a while ago a story how CJ&G was posing as work agencies and snatched them up when they showed up. That's even more filthy, nasty, and disgusting. And the reason that they should have no good person with real nuts, no real gangster, no real tough guy, none of that shit. Nobody with no real nuts should be wearing no jersey of motherfuckers that trick little kids into soldiers, and if they're not good enough, they smoke them. And girls and babies and whoever. Fuck you punks. We're tough. We're gangsters, shy. You pussy. They not gangsters and you pussy. El Rocha invited the victims, invited these 9 young people. 9 young people who are members of Los Brujos, okay. They're saying that matter-of-factly over here. They're friends, the official said. He told them, listen, why don't you come down here for a few days? After the invitation to come to the city, the victims allegedly asked the cartel boss if it would... Look, this is verbatim what the AI said. Man, I got to just get me an AI to make my videos, man. And engage in... the victims allegedly asked the cartel boss, which he's not a cartel boss, if it would be fine for them to steal and engage in other criminal activity while in Oaxaca. According to the source. That shit sounds crazy. Wow, these kids asked. They asked the boss, said, "Hey, boss, you think we could put some rolls around here?" The fuck are we talking about? La Barriega eventually led the young adults to their own carnage by giving them the green light. When he was asked if the young group could steal from businesses in Oaxaca, he responded, "There's no problem," the insider said. No problem. Just rob the local businesses. No problem. I run shit here. Huh? He was an old motherfucker trying to hang out with young and bucks and shit. Trying to tell everybody he was the shit. He run this city. I run this city. Yeah, go ahead. Take what you want. Well, then why don't you just give it to me then? Go. This just doesn't make sense to me. No problem. Go do it. The group of students from Tlaxcala, 5 men and 4 women, took La Barriega for his word and set out to commit a wave of muggings and thefts. Okay, I guess. However, it did not sit well with one of the rugs selling criminal groups that operates in Oaxaca, since the Los Brujos gang overstepped the line with their menacing activity on rival turf. There's another local criminal group that controls the area near the coast of Oaxaca. And then what happened, happened. The official told DailyMail.com, referencing the horrific unalivings and mutilations. The complex web of criminals in the area have an unspoken rule to steer clear of committing crimes that can harm local residents, but chaos ensued when the group of 9 students transgressed these street orders, the government source said. This fucking dork. Look at him. Face only a mother's mother could love. Authorities seen here investigating the scene where 9 students were found unalived. The business model of the criminal group that is most powerful right now is the sale of rug dealing to tourists. Jesus Christ. You mean the sale of rugs to tourists? The official says. So they have, I guess it's translated, so I got to give them a little bit more credit. But it's not just them. I feel like everybody I've read, even government paperwork, they make me sound crazy. So they have an agreement not to commit robberies because robbery is a crime that affects ordinary citizens. The visiting victims formed part of a Los Brujos cell known as Los Zacapoaxtlas. Zacapoaxtlas. Fuck out of here with all these consonants. And allegedly robbed $19,000 from a man at Santander Bank in Santa Cruz, Huatulco on February 14th. This is word for word what the AI said. So they hit the dude for the $19,000 at the bank. Show me something. Show me something from the bank. Show me it was those kids, 2 of them. Show me 2 of them walking into here and stealing something from there. Show me something. Hit the like button, y'all. February 17th, they nearly stole an ATM downtown in Huatulco and attempted to rob a business at a shopping center. Show me that. They don't got cameras in Mexico? What are you talking about? From what we heard, the Chapitos had access to the government cameras in Mexico. So there got to be cameras somewhere along the line of all of these, crimes that these brujos went out to do, right? Show me something. The source said that those incidents heated up the area, which led to the Oaxaca gang to respond. On February 27th, a group of men who identified themselves as police arrived at Hospedaje Hocha, a small hotel in the Oaxaca town of Huatulco that was owned by La Barriega. Now, was he in the town that they were in and he just owned the hotel there? Or was he there and he invited those kids out? I guess they're in the same gang, same nation. I don't know, man. One of the surviving victims, 19-year-old Brenda Salas, told the Tlaxcala State Attorney General's office that the Huatulco municipal officer forced her and her friend, 29-year-old Angie Perez. Why leave a loose end? Huh? Why leave a loose end like her? Abandoned on a road in Puebla one day before the dismembered remains of Perez and the other victims were discovered under a tarp and in the trunk of a car that was abandoned on the side of the highway. Why leave her just a loose end like that? Oh, there's cameras. They super selective. Boy, they walk around like they'll see shit. Look at this fucking dork. He looked like some shit out of a Marvel movie, like The Thing. The other victims were identified as Ruben Ramos, Rolando Evaristo, and Uriel Calva, each 22. Raul Gonzalez and Noemi Lopez, both 28, and Leslie Noya, 21. The Mexican government officials' theory came just as the Oaxaca State's Attorney General's office announced Thursday that it has launched an investigation into the possible criminal involvement of police officers. Oaxaca Governor Salomon Jara was questioned during the press conference on Tuesday about allegations that the police officers were behind the brutal unalivings and snatchings. He said that the accused cops, who have not been identified, will be prosecuted under the fullest extent of the law if the allegations are true. Selectively, like JP said. If there's a complaint and the people who were forcefully detained by the police have to file a complaint, they gone, motherfucker. If there's a complaint and the people who were forcefully detained by the police have to file a complaint, it cannot be allowed that a state or municipal police officer detains a person, dumps him or her away, and abandons him or her, or that person or is hurt or beaten or can be physically manipulated. The law already punishes people who commit these type of acts. The ratero. This is what you get for being a thief. The official said that authorities are also investigating the unaliving of La Barriega, which occurred on Sunday. The unalivers left a note over his body that read in Spanish, "This is what you get for being a thief." 5 of the victims were buried. They should have just left a sign on the car with these kids. It's just closed case. 5 of the victims were buried in Tlaxcala on Wednesday, and the burial of another person was scheduled for Thursday. Mexican news outlet's Milenio reporter. He's wearing Morena political party color shot. No mames, Lupe. What, in this fucking picture right here? Maybe he's just a fucking dork that don't know how to match, man. Everything means something around this fucking place. God damn. Gang shit. Ganga.